MkLeo, Mr. Best in the World, carries another character to victory. But we'll see if our opinions on the character all line up here on the podcast with all the different coaches. Obviously, we have a bunch of different perspectives, but I kind of want to go over the history of Corrin. Corrin used to be an extremely meta-defining character in Smash 4, but we didn't really know it until Cosmos kind of splashed onto the scene and started making waves with the character. It was always a character that came out at the same time as Bayo, so extremely got overshadowed by the other DLC, but was still a relevant force in the current meta. I actually think Corrin plays some of her stuff is similar from Smash 4, but there's a lot of different stuff, mainly like the pin and things like that, right? I think pin was probably the biggest thing. But other than that, it seems like Corrin just plays. The reason why Corrin like feels like she plays different in Ultimate is because more of the base game rather than the actual moves changed. And yeah, so I mean, and even Zachary was a Corrin main in Smash 4.
True.
Obviously,
Yep.
wasn't as successful during the Smash 4 days comparatively to Ultimate. But yeah, how do you guys feel about Smash 4 Corrin?
I
Can
mean,
I can
yeah,
I
you go
talk?
ahead. Yeah,
Mr.
go ahead,
I
man. Floor is yours.
I made I main Corrin in Smash 4. For those who don't know, I was about top 20 in Europe with Corrin back then. Had some wins on like some of the best players in Europe. Beat Girl Kells, some other wins. So I was a pretty solid Corrin main. I mean, I agree with Charles' analysis to some degree. Of course, there's a little bit of nuance. I feel like what made Corrin really good in Smash 4 was actually like the combination of two things. One of them, of course, being insta-pin. In this game, if you pin, you just kind of like, you do the hop, you get the pin. In that game, when you hit the pin, right? So when you press B the second time, so the pin would come out of the hop, it would kind of like auto correct you upwards, and it kind of like shot forwards. So the range for pin, it basically got halved in a lot of ways. You can still get that range in this game, but you have to like do the hop, wait a split second, and then press B, which is no longer a whiff punish. So Corrin has kind of moved from being a whiff punish character, which is honestly what she was in Smash 4. In that game, whiff punishing was also a lot better, to being more of a walling character, which you
Mm,
can see Leo make great use of. The other
mm,
thing that made Corrin really good in that game is her dash frames. So every character has like a unique amount of dash shield frames, and the fastest character in Smash 4 was Corrin, shared with Sheik. I think most of the dash shields in that game were about 11 frames, 12, 11, something like that. Corrin and Sheik had 8, which means that Corrin could be very precise about like her dash up shields, her dash up down tilts, her dash up perfect pivots back. So Corrin in that sense had a very controlled ground game, and a very huge whiff punish range. So that movement, both of those movement qualities, made up for the fact that she is so dang slow. And I feel like going into Ultimate, so just like quickly touching upon that. I tried out Corn, and the first thing that kind of like stood out to me is by kind of like removing the use of the initial dashes, right? Because in this game you can cancel anything out of a run, as well as making the cast faster generally, as
mm,
well as neutering the range on her burst range. It just made her feel a lot less fast. It made her feel a lot slower, and it made it a lot harder for her to control range. So that's kind of like my experience with Smash 4 Corrin and moving into Ultimate Corrin. What did you guys think about Smash 4 Corrin? Because I know in Europe, every country had like a top level Corrin, but in the US, she was pretty rare, and I feel like Japan had a lot of Corrins as well. But the US, outside of Cosmos, you didn't really have a top level Corrin rep, right?
yeah, it was hard. I think in my personal opinion, I felt like it was hard to be successful with Corrin in Smash 4, not because of how strong or weak the character was, it's because of how popular Fox was. Fox was Corrin's worst
Mm,
matchup.
yep.
And it, contrary to Ultimate Fox is not a very popular character. You see, if you spectate Ultimate, you'll see Light get to very high ends of the bracket, right, and get very far in tournaments. So you'll see a decent amount of Fox, but it's mainly because of Light or Passeri Man in different regions. But in Smash 4, it was like you could see multiple Foxes in top 8. You would see multiple Foxes like in rounds to get out of pools in top 32s and top 64s. Fox was a easier character to play and was a better character in Smash 4. Had very reliable, just the character could do it all. It was pretty insane.
True. Yep.
So that being your worst matchup made it very difficult. Cosmos, I think why Cosmos found so much success with the character in Smash 4 is because he was extremely good at the Fox matchup. Uh, so, I mean, even I main Fox and I would grind with him, and the fact that he could beat me, and like I wasn't like the greatest Fox or anything, but I definitely wouldn't be losing to Corins. But you know what I mean? Like the
Right.
matchup
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
really like when I
It
say
was
it was
rough. It was
really
rough as
hard,
hell. Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
super
Yeah.
super hard. Like when I played Fox against Corrin, even if I knew the player was better than me, I would have a lot of confidence just because of how skewed the matchup was character-wise. So I think that's what really pushed Cosmos apart. And Cosmos said he grinded that matchup the most out of any matchup. Like
Same for
he
me.
was
Yep.
he was so like, and that's how important it was for Corrin to be good at that matchup, right? So I think in the general scope of things, because Cosmos was able to conquer that specific matchup, he was able to set himself up for success against some of the other characters, right?
Mm.
And
Yep.
you know, having a good run-up shield, I think that made Corrin very strong. Insta-pin, like you said, having a good run-up shield in Smash 4 specifically was
Was
important
broken.
because
Yeah.
shield was such a powerful mechanic in Smash 4 and Brawl. So just having a good run-up shield, the best run-up shield, is super important, along with the Fire Emblem 130% up throw kill. Having a
Yeah.
vertical kill throw was very important. That got
Yep.
butchered. Like a lot of up throws kind of got butchered coming into Ultimate because I think the devs just kind of realized how, you know, consistent having that as a win condition is, right? So
Mhm.
my general thoughts on Corrin or Smash 4 Corrin. I don't know if Tony or Bam had anything to say about the Smash 4 era of Corrin.
Yeah, I mean that pretty much. You guys went over everything for the most part from me. Like you talked about in terms of the whiff punishing of the character dealing with like having to deal with Fox because Fox can just kind of just run through on people, right? He's one of the characters who can really just like blow back a character trying to be whiff punished because the character can just deal with so many things, right?
Right.
I think it was interesting to see overall that outside of like Cosmos, again, like in the US, we didn't see the character all too much, but of course we know like part of it has to do with Bayo. Part of it has to do with like a lot of people just weren't fans of the character, period, honestly,
Wait.
too.
Wait.
Like
What do you mean about Bayo? It's because everyone was playing Bayo, or
no, I'm saying like when those two characters came out relatively at the same time,
right? Yeah.
really
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
were more focused and transfixed on Bayo. Bayo as a character is just more popular, you know, because of her series and everything.
Oh yeah.
Versus Corrin, like, you know, that the game itself, like you know, people were really big into like that Fire Emblem, so like people were just like, dude, like screw it. Like so, I think there's a lot of people simply they weren't playing the character because they weren't really interested in the character, even though
Mhm.
fundamentally I feel like a lot of people felt like the character was pretty solid in avenues and like Pin was insane, right? And people would see all these things all the time, like, oh my gosh, why is this character killing people at like, you know, he's getting a rage pin and all of a sudden just get like blown back and stuff, you know, all
Oh
these kind of
yeah.
things. Because that was insane. Um,
Oh, Rage Pin wasn't
so
even, dude. Rage Dragon Fang shot was worse.
oh
Cause
that thing,
that move
that
had
move.
like it had like a 9 wind. So you know how like when Donkey
Yeah.
Kong does his neutral
Yeah,
B and like
I remember. Yeah.
yeah, and it was actually like kind of crazy because if you did a fully charged one, which was it happened at frame 21, it would kill. It could even like kill at like 70 with full rage. But if you did a semi-charged one, which was like frame 20, right? So one frame before
Yeah.
release, it could kill like 30% earlier. It was
Yes.
actually insane.
Yes.
Sooner than that, I think.
Yes.
At the like at the ledge, it could kill you at 30.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
like you could
dude,
start the match and be like, "Oh, I caught you slipping, dude."
I literally had like my most watched Smash 4 clip was me like at 150 on Smash 4 against Bayo hitting a pin kick into air dodge, read neutral B off stage, and killing her at like 15. It was like actually the funniest thing ever. So yeah, that move was insane and also got neutered to hell and back, just like Pin.
Killing Bayo at 15% in Smash 4, Justice.
That's
Beautiful time.
karma. That's karma, bro.
That was karma. That was karma. Remember the
Throwing air dodge.
pre-match counter?
Oh,
Oh,
bro.
pre-patch counter. Oh, one of my
Yeah.
favorite Smash 4 videos is Alpharad's counter video. I forget what it's called, but he acts like he's AFK. It's AFK Corrin. It's called AFK Corrin.
Right,
Look it up on
AFK
YouTube.
Corrin, yeah,
That
yeah.
shit is fucking hilarious. It's my favorite Smash 4 video. It's pure comedy. He just stands there and he acts like he's AFK, and then people do like full charge smash attack to hit him off, and he just counters on reaction and just like kills them at 0. It's so funny. It is so funny.
It was so good, man. Those
Yeah,
were
Tony,
the good times, man.
did you have any thoughts on Smash 4 Corrin before we kind of move on to the Ultimate era?
So specifically regarding the the setup Ramses was referring to, like they specifically nerfed Corrin's airspeed so that her fair 2 Dragon Fang shot would no longer work as a true combo because she could basically like forward air, and if you were like in the 20s, you were just dead.
Right.
And so I don't know why they thought that particular setup was just what needed to be nerfed out of the DLC, but they did. So they nerfed her airspeed. It no longer became a true combo. Most of my experience with the character was primarily based around Cosmos. I actually worked with quite a few of his rivals in the Midwest during Smash 4 and his locals in Texas, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I believe, if, as you may recall, he had like a Fox player named Jason was one of his early rivals.
Mhm.
Right.
So that was part of why he understood the importance of the matchup, is because he ran into it at his locals no matter how far into bracket he got, like every single event. The main reason I think that Corrin was unpopular in the US is the same reason why I think Corrin is unpopular in the US. And that is the character's usage rates have always been low for the character's efficacy. Like in Smash 4, she was one of the premier DLC characters, but her usage relative to the other DLC characters was always like, I think she got used less than Roy in Smash 4. And Roy was considered as meh as it gets. So the idea is like just following her usage rates in terms of tournament performance and placings. She pretty consistently was ranking as the worst character in the game in the meta. Or the comparisons with like Little Mac Ganondorf, they might be worse characters. They definitely aren't now, but they might have been worse characters all along. But even then, they would have enough people using the character that you would still see those characters in bracket. You would not see Corrin. There's a reason this character seemingly came out of nowhere, and it's because that character is nowhere. There's just a few people who use her in basically the whole world. So that hasn't really changed, honestly. What has changed is that the best player in the world has started using her, and then, of course, the best Corrin in the world prior to the best player in the world also has recently begun to break out. So I think that brings us right into Ultimate, actually, and that we now Shattuck has been in brackets since the beginning of Ultimate. So 2018, Shattuck was still getting placements, making it to and through pools sometimes. Usually wave 2 pools at bigger events is where his runs would end, which is fine. He's basically prepubescent. Well, was at the time. So it's expected that your 12-year-olds are going to tend to not take the cake in their brackets. So Spargo had similar results, I think, at the time, where he would occasionally make it break out of pools, but for the most part, his presence was on Wi-Fi. And so I think most of the people who had a high opinion of the character were these people who would regularly see him making top 8 at these Wi-Fi events.
Yeah, and it was impressive too because we're talking pre-patch Corrin. One thing I really want to make sure for all the viewers that are just like, I always knew Corrin, like since day one of Ultimate, Corrin was broken. I knew, and now Leo plays Corrin, and I was right the entire time. It's like, all right, chill. Like this character did get buffed quite a bit, so I just want to touch up on pre-patch Corrin, and I guess there's really nothing to touch up on because the only person that was really doing things with pre-patch Corrin was realistically Shattuck. And I think the only other performance that is notable is Cosmos' reverse 3-0 on Sir Busby on the Buzz at, I believe it was a glitch. I don't know which one exactly. There's a lot of them. But it was versus the Olimar, right? If I'm not mistaken, versus Olimar.
I think it was Rosalina, actually.
Oh, it was Rosie.
I remember.
It was a Smash 4
I remember
matchup.
it was Rosie.
Oh,
Exactly. Because that matchup was really good for Corrin in Smash 4. Because you would literally walk up to Rosa, pin her shield, kick away. She wouldn't be able to punish the kick away, but the kick away would kill Luma. So you just like Rosalina never had her Luma. And you could see a lot of that come out from Cosmos in that set as well, where he would just like, it wasn't pin because pin is not as good in this game, but back air kind of fulfills a similar role where you just like you space it back air on Luma. Not much Luma can do about it. Best thing you can do is keep Luma close to Rosalina, and then like Corrin has a lot of other tricks, like for example run up down throw, and then like the stomp that the dragon does in a down throw like knocks away Luma, right? So like that matchup has always been pretty solid for Corrin, just if you look at both of the characters' kits. So it made a lot of sense to me to saw Cosmos pull it out. It was a little bit surprising that he won, given the opinion of Corrin at the time.
Right. But it made sense if you really look at the toolkits, right? Yeah, that's the thing, right? That notable performance there was really like more of like a quality counter pick there that happened to Cosmos,
Yep.
you know, and then him just being an incredible player, right? But then, like, of course, like you said, this character got buffed a ton, and I think this is also a reference to how close some of the quote unquote tiers are in this game and how everything is too as well, right? Where there's a lot of these characters where it's like they just needed a few buffs here and there, and over time, like when people revisit these characters, they see, oh my gosh, look, this character is actually solid or good enough to actually do something with. But yeah, I mean, you have a game where a lot of characters aren't too far from each other, and it's a lot of times it's like these little things that make them appear, right? And we've been seeing that more and more again when people actually take time to actually revisit these characters as opposed to automatically writing them off, which we have seen for a lot of characters, when we went through that transition from Smash 4 into Ultimate.
Yeah, shout outs to the balance team. Honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of Ultimate patches. I feel like they're pretty tamed, so to speak.
Yeah.
I wish they would be a little bit more brave about some of the buffs they give
We
characters and
had
stuff like
a
that.
really good nerf patch early on where they hit like Pichu and Olimar and
Right.
and Peach, and then they never had like a big patch that nerf characters in the big way
Wolf
ever
got
again. I
like
don't think.
kind of hit. Like the up B hit was like really
Well,
big, right?
Okay, all right.
I'm just
I thought
saying.
you were gonna say the down smash.
yeah. I
Down
like
smash
this.
kills,
This-
2%
oh,
later.
Yeah, oh,
The up B
dude,
was the big one.
like-
The up B and the blaster were
Yeah.
big. The up B and the
Yeah,
blaster
yeah,
were
yeah.
big.
That's-
You couldn't. It was
The
so hard to
blaster is
2-frame
so
one.
But, yeah,
So
the
hard to
blaster is a
2-frame.
big. Blaster is a big
Yeah,
one for
they
sure,
did the same
for
thing
sure.
to Ivysaur Razor Leaf, and in both cases it was just like huge, just 2 extra frames.
Yeah.
Ivy Dare, right? Stuff like that.
Oh,
Like, yeah. Ivy Dare, the down throw angle. Like, I think Pokemon Trainer would still be very relevant. But I mean, we're kind of getting off topic. I
Hey,
guess we're just talking about
yeah.
patches, but
Patches, yeah.
they're
yeah.
pretty
Mhm.
they're pretty tamed. And at first glance, I was like, man, this sucks. Like, especially when it's the early phase of Ultimate, and like if you're a content creator too, these patches are huge for content stuff, right? But when it's just like 1 frame, 2 frames, just little tweaks here, the earlier buffs felt more bold, and then later on
Yeah.
throughout the buffs, they didn't feel that bold. But I think that's just us kind of. I'm looking back on it now. I'm like, dang, like the Diddy recovery buff did matter. The Corrin recovery buff, it did matter, right? Stuff like that.
Well,
A lot
that
of
down throw back air being removed, that was insane.
Oh, that was
Right.
that was crazy. Paulu has
Yeah.
gotten hit very hard
He
throughout.
probably got hit hard,
multiple
yeah.
times.
Yeah.
It's
Multiple
like
times. Yeah.
Paulu got hit like kind of hard, but multiple times. So when you put it all together, you're like, dang, this character got shit tit.
And that's
Exactly.
really what it comes down to, right? Like a lot of times, a lot of these, like in the individual, like you look at it and you're like, oh, like this one little thing, it's okay. But a lot of these accumulated like buffs or nerfs, you recognize like how much like, okay, now that they really went into the long term game, right? It wasn't like let's go wild for a patch and then see what happens and then mix. It was like a little bit tweak. Okay, I think we're close there. Not so much that. Let's do a little here, and all of a sudden you see the full picture at the end of the game. And again, like it's cool to see that now people are revisiting some of these characters and really recognizing some of the value of these patches. So, yeah, I mean, again, to your point, Charles, like don't want to see people in the comment section be, oh my gosh, this is crazy.
I knew since
like,
day one.
yeah, I knew since day one. I
Yeah.
do think that some of these sword. I mean, obviously there's a billion sword characters in the game, but like it's like the nature of like how the game works. A lot of these characters are pretty solid, and I said like it takes a few patches here and there to put them in a place where they could really be utilized competitively, and I think that's kind of like what we were seeing here. But yeah, Ramsey, you want to run down the host
The
of
changes.
Yeah, the changes.
Oh, yeah. So I remember. I'm in like a toxic relationship. I keep coming back to Corrin, even though she will disappoint me. But I mean, I don't play her in a serious way. But I have tried her out. I played her in a few tournaments. I've gotten like good placings. I remember one of the better early buffs that she got was her upper auto cancel window, because I think her short hop is like exactly 38 frames and her up air auto canceled at like frame 40. So they brought that down to like 38. So now if you do like a short up air, it auto cancels. Well, that's kind of insane.
That's huge.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Her up there is crazy.
Her up air is easily her
Fucking
best move.
wild move.
Yeah, like I think it's probably possibly the best upper in the game, because it's not just a juggling tool, it's not just a kill tool, it's not just a combo tool, it's also a landing tool. You can use it out of disadvantage. It just does like everything. I think afterwards she got a few. I'm looking at the changes right now.
Mhm.
She got a few like buffs on like quality of life stuff. Like the Dragon Lunge Tap has a little bit less, like 2 frames less ending lag. The Dragon Fang Shock travels a little bit further. One of the bigger ones was that her B got a little bit more invincibility because honestly, like you can talk about the movement being different and the burst range being different in Ultimate, but by far the biggest nerf to Corrin was on her up B. Because I don't know if you guys are very familiar with Corrin's up B in Smash 4, but in Smash 4 it had like 20 mix-ups. It was insane because you could angle the up B, you could change the angle mid up B, and then at the end of the up B she had this thing where she did a twirl, and in the twirl you could add a lot of momentum as well. Like it got developed to the degree that Bayonetta couldn't gimp Corrin because Corrin's up B just had so many mix-ups that was impossible to like actually beat the up B. Well, they removed all of the drift, all of the mix-ups, and a bit of the invincibility coming into Smash Ultimate. And in this early patch, they gave a bit of the invincibility back, and I think in a later patch they gave a little bit of the distance and the and the travel speed back. So that was like patch 2 and 3, and then later on she got the up B buff. The up B buff was honestly like we can talk about like maybe the forward smash buffs and the up air buffs being big. The up B buff again, I think it's by far the biggest one because in this game like everyone can can try to gimp you, and Corrin's up B is just like a lot of characters can trade a multi-hit into the up B, and because the invincibility kind of like aligns with the first hit of the up B, you trade the first hit of Corrin's up B with like a Mewtwo Nair, and you just drop down and you just die. And a lot of that got fixed by just making it a little bit bigger because now you trade and you can still come back afterwards. You have a little bit more invincibility, right? I think so in her most recent buffs, as far as I know, which was patch 8, she got a shield stun multiplier on her forward smash, which was honestly big, because her forward smash in Smash 4, her tipper forward smash was safe on shield, like entirely safe. But in this game, it's actually not because of the increased dash speed of characters and lag, blah blah. So it's a lot more safe again, which is big because she doesn't have an amazing ground game. She has her insta pin, which isn't as good as it used to be. Her down tilt is like -20, which is honestly not good. People over respect that move a lot. So having something like a forward smash to break shields like Leo does, or have a tipper that is safe and also very scary, that just does a lot for her. And then they also buffed Rebecca, which is honestly a huge buff because I don't know about you guys, but seeing Leo play Corrin at the recent event, I was just like, wait, Becker killed there? And that's because it just got a clean damage buff with no compensation for nerfs for the knockback. So if a move does more damage, it also does more knockback. Yeah. And a 1% damage increase is kind of insane.
Yeah, that's huge.
And up air got a damage buff as well. 1% as well, with a little bit of knockback compensation, but not enough to really like. It still improves the KO power. So overall, she just like she hits harder. She has a little bit more tools, a little bit more ground game too. And throughout the patches, I don't really like. There's a lot of different changes, but her pin got steadily buffed as well. So when you drop off the pin, because if you pin, you can kick forward, kick back, jump, or drop. And I think the drop got cut in lag, and I think the jump got cut in lag, and I think the pin itself. So if you don't pin it to a surface, but you just do like full hop pin, it also got its lag reduced because in Smash 4 you could do like full hop pin and hit grounded opponents, and then double jump or even nair as you land. Yeah, exactly. And in this game, if you full hop pin, you're in lag all the way to the bottom. And I think this change actually made it so that you can do things before you land. So that's that's big. So I think her pin jump went from 46 frames on release to 30 right now, which is 66% of what it used to be, basically. Whoa. So that's kind of insane.
Yeah, it's huge. They definitely buffed the crap out of that move.
Yeah. So they basically
is there more? Jesus Christ.
No, that's it, right? That's it.
There's more.
But wait, there's more.
Is there more?
Yeah. For one, her forward air got buffed too.
Oh yeah, her forward air damage is up as well. It was 7.5. It's 9 now.
Which doesn't sound like a big deal, but if I remember correctly, it's like -4 on block now. So like
optimal starter move.
Yeah, and it combos into itself.
Yeah, exactly. So they made it actually better. It's does more damage, and it's actually a better combo tool because they reduced knockback scaling. So there was a lot of things where we're like, she would get combos if you were in this right position and people were maybe messing up DI, right? But now it's in a position where it's like, oh no, if I'm hitting you with punishing with fair, which is like a Lucina fair,
Jesus.
then that means I'm getting like 4 other fairs, or if I want to go into an extension, fair up air or whatever it may be, right?
Yeah.
But those changes were like
You can
astronomical for this character.
you can even add another like sort of not really a Corrin buff, but the stall and fall down air thing got removed, where like if you down air out of
Hits
knockback
them.
with a stall and fall, you would stall beforehand, right? Stall entirely, not fall at all. And the fact that you now fall downwards is actually better for the stall and fall down airs, because beforehand, if the opponent just kind of waited it out, you would be stuck up there, and they would just be able to do anything. And now you can actually reversal with it a lot more easily, which Corrin's down air is good at because it has a landing hitbox as well. So in a lot of situations, you can just like down air, maybe get like a hit out, and then get the landing hitbox to connect as well, which just can break some combos. I know, for example, like some drag down things, you can like press down air out of it, and either you get an A landing, which reduces your lag, or you get like the landing hitbox, which you just break the combo
Hits
like
them.
that.
Right.
Yep. So that helps too. Yep.
Man, that is a lot of buffs. So
Yeah.
whenever someone flexes about Corrin and they're like, "Yo, I always knew you gotta hit him with the after which patch though," because realistically, someone's just trying to flex their knowledge and prediction of the game, right? And it's just like, oh, so was it the 1.5 damage increase on fair that made you change your mind, or you know what I mean? Because in my opinion, she did suck before the buffs. Before all of these
Yep,
buffs, like
you did.
it like Ramses was saying, the up B is so important. And then even from there, it's not even like there was 1 or 2 monumental buffs. I feel like there was like 1 or 2 monumental ones, and then like maybe 3 or 4 sub monumental ones kind of deal, right? Where it's just because
Yeah.
I think the auto cancel up air one is up there with the up B one in terms of
It's big. Yeah.
because Corrin, in my opinion, is very strong. And I'm so curious why I didn't see it before, but I'm like, man, so you're trapping, because Leo's trapping people's landings with like double jump up air or just like a short hop up air into like
Yep.
trap landing after the short hop up air because of the auto cancel window, and you couldn't do that before
Exactly.
off short hop up air.
Yep.
So that's a very big deal for Corrin's offense because, like we mentioned earlier, Corrin up air is one of, if not the best up airs in the entire game in terms of how large the range is and how far up it covers and vertical. And then from there, Corrin has an amazing kit to come down on. Like if you air dodge, it's like, oh, now you're right next to me, falling neutral or falling fair, both of those combo. Falling back air, that just kills you, right? Or sets you up in a really bad spot. So yeah, just incredible amount of buffs that matter a ton into how Corrin plays an ultimate. I do think the base game mechanics somewhat help her. I think Ramses is right in a sense where down tilt is definitely over-respected, but the fact that dash down tilt is a option for Corrin is definitely not a Diddy dash down tilt, right? But it's still a
True.
down tilt that's like a combo starter once you get them to a certain threshold and stuff. Something you just got to respect. Corrin just having
Nice to have.
a
Yeah.
really good run up tilt option or a really good run up shield option. Just now shielding is not as good in this game, but one thing that I just wanted to personally go over is the usage of pin that I think is really interesting. Pink talks about this in Tweak Talks, and you saw Leo do this a lot, and I think now this is something that I kind of want to just go over in general, and it'll probably be the title of the YouTube video, honestly. Does Leo carry Corrin? Why? Like, Leo has been playing Corrin for a good amount of time. I think it's been about maybe, and he's always played Corrin since Smash 4. So I think he's dabbled with the character, but he's been playing Corrin
Yeah.
in tournament for about a month or two now, right?
Mhm.
And that we've been seeing. So I just want to come up with a question: does Leo carry Corrin, or is it maybe matchup unfamiliarity? I do feel like there's some things that it looks pretty obvious that some players are lost in certain situations, right? I do think there are certain situations with Corrin that are messed up that force you to burn a resource, like dealing with up air. Leo abuses the crap out of that move to make you go into specific spots that he wants you to go to, and that there's not really counterplay to that. That's just like a really fucking broken move that you just have to hold that L, right? But I think
Yeah.
pin is a big one. So Leo was getting a lot of drop pin into read tech roll in, and Pink
Back chase,
explained
yes.
Pink explained why that was the case. It's very similar, and if you haven't watched that episode of Tweak Talks, I'll just explain it real quick. It's very similar to why Esam would get he would jab block you, and then he would run in and start charging up smash because you're preemptively DIing the forward smash that you think is going to follow, right? So it's on the player that is getting jab blocked to have the discipline to not autopilot DI, because most of the time you autopilot DI because you want to get it out as soon as possible, because you'd rather not trust your reactions and just do it and get the DI, right? But in those kind of situations when you get pinned, I think players are going to have to be a little bit more disciplined, wait to see the kick, then DI, because if Leo drops it and you're also holding shield, or maybe hold in and not hold shield at the same time, some kind of muscle memory. Leo is taking advantage of human instinctive smash, or like instinctive smash instincts, I should say.
Right.
Where like you're generally holding shield because you don't want to get hit, but you're also DIing in. So you're holding Tekken in and you're going to get tech roll in, right? And then Leo would get a bunch of stuff off of that, right? I think that's a really big thing that can be counterplayed. And then the shield break with the charge smash attack.
Forward smash.
Right, with the charge forward smash. I know you guys were breaking that down. If you guys want to break it down for the audience, like in terms of what you have to do, right? And like what the rehit rate is and all that other stuff.
Right. Should I take this? All right.
Yeah. You explain it before the call.
So the thing about the forward smash charge is it doesn't incur the invincible roll. So if you get rapid jabbed and you like hold in, you just get a frame 1 invincible roll always. Forward smash rehit rate is every 5 frames, which means it doesn't give you the invincibility. So you cannot buffer a roll out of this move, and you cannot buffer like a spot dodge out of it because you're gonna get caught. The thing about the move is it hits every 5 frames, which means that it basically hits you on frame 1. Then it has 2 frames of shield stun, and then you're actionable for 2 frames, and then the next hit comes. So you have a 2-frame window to do anything you'd like, which means that if, for example, you roll, the rehit catches your roll, stuff like that. So you cannot really roll. You cannot really jump. Well, you can. We'll talk about that. But like if you jump, you get caught by the chainsaw still. So a lot of people kind of get stuck in shield. You could parry it. But if you want to try to parry it, you have the 2-frame window in which you're actionable to try to parry it. Because if you try to drop your shield during shield stun, you don't get a parry. So you have to manually time it. So most people don't try to parry it because the timing is very sensitive. So during those 2 frames, you basically cannot do much. So the best thing to do about the charge is you want to hold shield and hold special. Because when you hold special, you cannot do rolls out of shield. And now that you hold shield and special, or you can also hold 2 shield buttons if you prefer that. You want to shield SDI away from her. And her charge, forward smash, has an SDI multiplier, so you're going to SDI more than normal. It's kind of like Lucario Aura Sphere. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but like against the Aura Sphere traps on shield, you also got to shield SDI away from the multi-hit. So that's what you got to do. You shield SDI away from the charge hitbox, and then very rapidly it will stop hitting you, and then you can release your shield, and because the shield, the parry bubble is bigger than your shield, you usually get a parry on the charge, and then you're free to do a lot of things. I mean, given your frame data, of course, you gotta pick an option. So that's shield SDI. That's like the best thing to do. It can be a little bit scary, especially if she catches you in like when she's right next to you. The more simple solution is to drop your shield, get hit, and spam SDI upwards. Again, the Saw Blade has an SDI multiplier. And if you SDI upwards, sometimes it will whiff entirely, especially if you're closer. Sometimes you can get hit by up-angled forward smash, but the weak hit of the forward smash is honestly not that strong. I mean, it's still, she's still going to get a hit. But in that sense, it's kind of like similar to like a Bowser Flame Breath, right? You shielded, she called out your shield, she got a hit, she got an advantage state out of it. Now, go from there. The absolute worst thing you can do is stay in shield or roll away, because if you do manage to roll away, you're going to roll into the tipper. So yeah, I recommend shield SDI or jump plus SDI. And yeah, through that, you should never get shield broken.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I like that you were saying like the point, right? When you are close, like you do have to recognize that probably by the time that you SDI, especially if they're looking for this, I'm assuming they're looking at you with like somewhat small of a shield. If they get you close, then just take the hit. Like just take a hit. All right, that's the poison. You get it, your hits, like you said, you have the SDI multiplier, and then you go from there. Even some characters, just because of their hurt box shift when they're getting hit, but anyways, and you're SDIing up, the forward smash could whiff, right? Yeah. But that's the biggest thing. And then, like you said, then if it's later, it's farther away, then you can go for the SDI, shield SDI, right?
Yeah.
And make sure that you're doing it with the special buttons and stuff too. Otherwise, Get
You
Jin.
buff her role, exactly.
Yeah.
So like I just calced it, the weak hit of the Corrin forward smash without rage, center stage final destination against Mario, kills at 167. So, that's pretty late. And the other part of the equation is that Corrin is just like not great against shield. She can space things, and she could like tomahawk you because her tomahawk is not bad honestly, but her grab is not very rewarding. She doesn't really have like, for example, like Roy could do an empty land nair with 2 hits or a fair with 1 hit, which is also like a timing mix up. Corrin doesn't really have that. I mean, she could use pin, but pin. If you're ready for it, she pins your shield. You can punish her before she can do almost anything. So like her anti-shield game is kind of weak, and forward smash is in a lot of ways like the answer to someone who relies on shield to mitigate Corrin. So knowing how to counterplay that, it really does help a lot because like I said, Corrin's grab is just not really scary at all until the up throw starts killing. And like Charles said, that's going to happen a lot later in this game than in previous iterations.
One thing before I pass it to Tony real quick is on the grab. I want to say that Leo, I think I'm pretty sure there is counterplay to this, but something that was impressive to me about Leo, he was getting grabs at center stage on PS2, and he would forward throw and back throw, and they would set up tech chase scenarios on the platform.
On the platform, yeah.
I think
you can DI that.
You could probably DI like up or down, maybe. I'm not too sure.
Down.
Maybe
well,
down.
It depends on how floaty. Depends on how fast you fall. But
right,
yeah.
Fall speed combined with percentages. But I'm pretty sure, like if you're higher percent, you could probably DI up and not end up on the platform. Or if you're lower, just DI down or out, like Ramses was saying, and not end up being on the platform. But again, this is kind of things that like maybe not too much players are experienced with. Right, you're in a tournament.
Yeah.
Tony touched up earlier. This character is non-existent. Not a lot of people play this character, right? So, and on top of that, the stars are aligning with the fact that pretty much the best sword player in the world, combined with being the best player in the world, picked up the character. There's just a lot of fundamentals that are seeping through. I personally think Corrin is like, I wouldn't say carried by Leo, but obviously Leo is a huge part of it. Now, I don't think Leo is by any means optimized with the character just yet, but I don't think Corrin's like top tier or anything. I think she's like a solid top 30 character around there, you know what I mean? And even then, that is pretty that in my opinion that's still a pretty high opinion of the character. Top 30 is like being gracious that's being optimistic about Corrin. So I don't know what your thoughts on Leo's performance was, Tony, at Retta. Obviously that's like the main data we have, right? Current Corrin results is pretty much Leo playing Corrin at like starting at around G4, maybe before that at some locals and streams. His obviously his performance at Retta. Well, Larry beat him at G4, and then Leo got the run back at Retta, and then Shattuck's performance at Collision as of recently, getting a W on Cosmos, which is ironic because Cosmos was like the Corrin, right? But yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on the current meta right now, Tony, of Corrin?
So, I think that the story behind Corrin relating to Leo is actually pretty complicated. I will say that part of my perception of him looking into a non-Aegis, non-Byleth character is relating to Spargo. So for those who do not follow both, essentially Leo's consistent most difficult challenge in bracket is Spargo. And Spargo specifically, after losing to Leo's Byleth, has regularly been entering like online tournaments with Byleth. Focusing specifically on developing that matchup. And it obviously has worked out for him, as we saw like at Summit. And since then, Leo has started feeling less confident with Byleth, not because of Byleth, but I would attribute that to Spargo. Whether or not that's Leo's perception, I don't know. So my tinfoil hat theory on that is that
it's on.
Leo is looking for another character he's comfortable playing, and he has always played Corrin on some degree, if only just because he likes the character. He has a very large number of effective pocket characters that people don't know they should be afraid of yet. So I think that Leo specifically wanted to reach into his pocket. I believe Last being his coach, specifically said that Leo was adamant that his counter going forward is Corrin specifically, and that they plan their game plans around that being a fact. And then assuming around that. So I think that's a separate factor. I will also say that Leo and Shattuck attack very different spaces, look for very different openings with the character. Leo, in particular, when we did see him struggling with Corrin, was when he's aggressing. So I mentioned that Corrin has a -4 fair. Pretty much her frame data and moveset can be related to Cloud's frame data and Pyra's moveset on the ground. And then, of course, she has more traditional sword character moves as relating to like Marth, Lucina, Roy, etc., etc. Like the other Fire Emblem up airs and forward airs are similar. Now, one of the issues with these character archetypes that people who are unaccustomed to these being a dominant force in the meta is that they have an overhead and then arcing downward slash. And so that means that when the attacks begin, they don't hit you in front of them. They hit above them. And then they come down, and then like 2-3 frames later, they'll come down and hit you. And this also applies to, like, for example, her frame data. Now, one of the issues with Corrin using her aerials, you have high aerials and mid aerials and then low aerials. So she has to choose between either being safe or covering your jumps, which means that at any given time, you can either jump in on her or what she's doing is probably not safe on your block. Now, Leo got around this by attacking the space between his opponent and him. Like you see him drifting in with up airs and then using like the end of the up air, auto cancel up air to hit around, but you'll see it whiff right next to the opponent's shield instead of trying to hit the opponent's shield, because the whole point is that he's focusing on either covering the jump or hitting them into it. And this particularly became apparent to me versus, I believe it was Gluto, who was just straight up, anytime he would jump into Gluto's shield, he would just be out of shield and it would consistently shut down Corrin. Now, for those who don't know, Wario has a frame 6 up B out of shield.
Wow.
That's not -4. Yeah. So that means that Leo is consistently hitting the tops of their shields with this arcing down swing anytime he wants to hit their jump. And so because it's less safe, Gluto is consistently taking advantage of that. And that's why, even though Wario as a character tends to struggle with disjoints, Gluto was still able to get openings, get in hits. And even though he lost 3-0, he found quite a few openings through that 3-0. And so I think what we're going to see with Spargo is he engineers counterplay, is that we're going to see Spargo learn to take advantage of this aggression and either straight up counter hit it, because Cloud as a character can actually whiff punish Corrin swings and then out disjoint them. The alternative is that Cloud also, as we mentioned in our Cloud podcast, has a very above average out of shield game, and he can usually up B these more committal swings. Another issue is that Leo likes to overshoot to cover people retreating. Although he's not comfortable with it yet. I think we're going to see Leo develop that with Corrin. We saw this very similarly in his Byleth development. We originally saw his Byleth, I believe, in what was also a Latin American invitational event versus which was
for
like
the
Aegis.
Tour.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the Aegis and Byleth debuts there. And even though Leo very clearly proved me wrong at that point, I'm going to say the same thing that I said about his Byleth. This is an invitational. This is a very small player pool. They're very strong players. But the point is that Leo has very defined game plans versus these people. He has, at the very least, I don't know if he still works with Nux, but the point is he has at least one person helping him create these game plans. He was very likely prepared for every single player at that event. So I would like to see Corrin against players who he's not prepared for and see how he develops his game plans there, see how those test. Same thing when Byleth did very well at Summit. I would not have been surprised if the Byleth had done poorly at a technically easier tournament with a larger player pool, because these characters, sword characters in general, tend to struggle with niche characters and obscure matchups, just because they tend to be very exacting on what spaces they're covering. And so if you catch them, like for example, Shotos, even though Shotos typically are considered to be disadvantaged versus swords, if you are not familiar with the matchup, the Shoto is going to get in very easily. They're just going to run straight under one of your attacks, hit you, and then they're going to hit like a Shoto. So that's what I look to seeing more from Leo's end of the bargain. For Shattuck tends to be a much more direct player.
Yeah, I agree.
Shattuck likes to swing and push his buttons and then use the thread of his projectiles to kind of pin you down, either literally or either with the thread of something. And then once he has you down there, he likes to attack you directly. So it's a matter of that same weaker offense that I was discussing before is going to be especially effective against Shattuck because he doesn't use that same space control to control his opponent. So I think that anyone with a well-developed out-of-shield game, even if it's just a character that can move very fast out of shield, I think those characters are going to perform well versus Shattuck. I do look forward to seeing more of him. I think he's a very talented young man, and that he's, regardless of Corrin's place in the meta, that he will continue to do well and better as he gets more experience. Yeah. So I will also say that one buff we haven't really mentioned the efficacy of is the projectile buff, like specifically the range of it. Mm-hmm. When Corrin shoots that little paralyzer ball, it can set up for tech chase situations in Ultimate. He got quite a few kills where he shot it out at someone. You would see the opponent backdash thinking that they were going to outrange, and then the projectile just straight up didn't disappear. And he didn't shield. Yeah. So it caught people off guard because some of these people have played against Corrin before, but they haven't played Corrin in some time, and so they have like an instinct, like Charles was referencing, to, oh yeah, this projectile is going to disappear, I don't need to parry this on reaction, and then they get hit, and it's like, well, shit. Leo just runs up and tech chases you with forward smash, and you died at 70.
Yeah, so, and it's like, and to your point, I was gonna say, Tony, just like, yeah, and like this is the thing where, yeah, you've played against Corrin, and then you haven't played against Corrin in some time, and you haven't played against this version of Corrin, right? And we kind of saw a collective of those things, right? I think it's like crazy. We see from a lot of people, they talk about this character like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, Leo carrying these characters. Does he play this character and all of a sudden this character becomes this mythological beast, right? And we talked about this time and time again on this podcast. But one of the big things is a player can only do so much with the tools that are given, right? They can't make some all of a sudden like new moves. They don't pop out anywhere. They're not coding the game in real time. Yeah. That's not what's happening here, right? And so they only can go for a certain extent. Now you have obviously an immaculate pilot in the form of MkLeo, so he's going to do his thing. And you also have this idea of where this character isn't the same character that you've seen before. If you're one of the few who have seen the character before, right? So even then, that matchup experience is probably going to backfire on you, and then you just have a lot of just not going to be ready for it. And again, like we were talking about in terms of the relation between Corrin and Pyra, right? There's a lot of similar traps that we were kind of seeing from him that he's like essentially like brought over, right? Pyra can do like a similar thing with her up air, right? Her up air is going to be like -5. Just swing that thing in the back end, right? And cover some options. If someone tries to go for, you can't really contest it, right? So that's something you have to air dodge. Then he can go and punish that air dodge, right? And we're seeing a lot of those similar things from him there, right? We're seeing the similar things too where he's doing this slight jump back. Oh, you're chilling here. Let me throw out my back air. My back air now kills almost like a Byleth back air because it hits like crazy, right? Like you were talking about, to your point, Ramsey, where you're like, wow, that move is killing there. Why, right? It's just like that beauty of that buff, and of course the move moves MkLeo away, so you can just go back into positioning. So we're seeing a lot of those things where it's like part of him just being immaculate at piloting stories, like then it's like part of it just character unfamiliarity clearly here, and I do think that to Tony's point, a lot of these things are working in a vacuum, right? And I think that's one of the reasons, like, of course, like, Larry's just an incredible player anyways, regardless. But I do think, like, you're going to probably see a more, like, some of those people out there that are probably going to body that Corrin, right? And it's like, there's certain matchups specifically it's going to work for. Outside of that, like, now we're talking about Genesis, it's about to happen next, like, very, very soon, right? But, like, you're thinking about that, like, dude, I don't think that's going to work in an open tournament format. in my opinion. I don't think that Corrin's going to go the distance there. I think that you pick and choose some of these matchups and you use it, but I don't think it's going to be like a like him just kind of running rampant with a Byleth or like an Aegis and then doing his thing.
It's hard to say. I think the thing that about Corrin and something that Tony talked about is like, hey, you can kind of relate Corrin's frame data to Cloud's. Like her forward air is -4. It's a trap, right? Just like Cloud back air. But I still think like a big difference between the two is that like Cloud can jump into you and back air you, and you'll be scared. He also has better burst range than Corrin does. Pin is good, but at this point is more of a footsie tool than burst range. And her actual dash attack is usable in this game. It wasn't in Smash 4. It's usable, but it's still a frame 12 dash attack that lasts for like a literal second.
Doesn't KO you, like
Doesn't KO.
It's
The situation after is pretty nice. I won't lie, but like it's point being like Cloud can force more respect and then set up pressure. I think if Corrin is getting like a landing fair that is also a pressure situation on you on your shield, it's probably already a punishment. And how does like and this is not like not me being super negative about Corrin, but I feel like if you know how the character works, then you're probably not going to get stuck in a situation where she gets to trap you with a safe landing move. Also, part of it is that her outer shield is not as good as Cloud's, right? She has a frame 9. I think that's her fastest outer shield nair. And her outer shield nair is good. It's kind of like a Sephiroth nair in a sense that, like you can jump away and kind of like, even if it gets blocked, it's kind of safe-ish. But it's not like, it's not like you can do a landing aerial and then shield, and then if they hit your shield, you can immediately punish. That's not always the case. And even if you do, it's a rising nair. It's like, most of the time don't even get much of an advantage state out of it because you got to land after, right? The point being, like, I think she is a defensive character. And that is why she works so well against a character like Falco, because Falco wants to get in. Well, good luck getting in against that back air and the footsie tools and the preemptive nair is like her rising nair is objectively, like, in my opinion, one of the best anti-airs in neutral in the game. Because it's so, like frame 9 can be done on the shield. It starts diagonally above her, as well as diagonally behind her, which means that you can catch cross-ups like a Pikachu dash attack or something like that, as well as anti-air people. Most characters cannot anti-air diagonally above them. Bless you. So like defensively, she's a fortress, but her pressure is lackluster. And I feel like the difference is for Byleth. Like, Byleth has her burst range, which is good. She has her throw combos. She has a more significant range advantage. So what you see with, like, Byleth, I feel like the character has more longevity because the character has more options. I think we can all agree that Byleth is a better character than Corrin. And that is kind of like the thing that I'm looking at with Corrin. I was like, okay, I think Leo can easily get top 8 at any event with Corrin because he can play defensively, and people will not consistently know how to abuse that defensiveness because it's hard. Like, that's why so many people play defensive in this game, is because defensive play is hard to abuse. And at top level, you kind of transition back into like a more fast-paced, pressure-based style because that's how you beat passive defense, right? But until like top 8 level opponents, maybe at like a more stacked event like top 16, they probably won't know how to abuse that defensive-ness. Or they might play a Falco or like a Ken or Ryu who just cannot really abuse that. Exactly. Yeah. And on that note, I'm and this is like, I don't want to overstep my boundaries because I don't know Leo, but I am a little bit worried about his character picks because I feel like Byleth has been getting figured out, and we can see it in the results of the Byleth. And now we're getting a new character that also has like limitations that can also get figured out. And like, personally, and this is not me, like, not me speaking as a coach, just me as a person, I would like him to pick a character that has longevity, and I feel like Byleth and Corrin are both not at the top level, and I'm just really curious to see when we're gonna see him settle down on something that scales with the level of play that he's at.
Yeah, he's in the bachelor phase right now, man. He's find a home, man.
He's dating.
Build a family, man. He's definitely dating around right now, man. Get off the Tinder, Leo. I need to see the real character.
He's not even playing female Byleth. Come on, man.
I know, man.
It's hard. I feel like it's because of how balanced this game is. It's like the question comes to of do you think there'll be a point where Leo has to get off the Byleth and get off
That's
the
fair.
Corrin, right? Like
That's
it's
true.
like
That's true.
is this game balanced enough that if there is a clearly better player or if there's a specific skill gap between the two players, the other player with the clear skill gap can just play a pretty decent character or above average character, right? That and I think with Leo specifically, his character picks are obviously we know what's comfortable for him. We've seen him play Joker, right? Obviously, he can play the super speedy, whiff, punish, dank combos. He can play that character, right? He can do that. But
True.
I think where he's very comfortable with is, obviously what he's known for is, playing at that distance, playing at that range where he's locking you down, and then I think Leo's specialty in it for my like watching Leo grow is it's swords. It's a really like easy way to say like, oh yeah, he's the sword guy. You know what I mean? But for me, I think Leo is the mid range guy. He
Yep.
understands mid
Mhm.
range to a fucking T. Like this guy knows how you feel on Friday, Saturday, after you eat lunch. He knows exactly how you feel in mid range, no matter the situation. He's
Yeah.
extremely good, and to deceive Leo at mid range, it's very difficult to do that. He just knows this area so well. He knows like once you enter that mid range bubble, it's like that's where he just specializes so much in. And I even told Leo, obviously I've talked with Leo a bunch, and after Evo, he was asking me about advice on Mega Man. He's like, man, I don't know why I struggle so much against Mega Man. I was like, you know what it is, Leo? It's because
Ellis in mid range.
because Mega Man
Mhm.
fucks you up for playing mid range. He has,
Yep.
Mhm.
I think, his character, and obviously, I think Leo isn't as bad against Mega Man now, and I think even the advice I gave him is like, there are some characters that are going to have better mid range tools than you, so you have to accept that and play at ranges that you're not comfortable. I think why you did lose to Mega Man, or why maybe Mega Man caught you off guard at Evo, right, was because you tried to play in your domain. You tried to play
Yeah.
at your mid-range space, and you can't do that against Mega Man. Against a very good Mega Man that has maybe not the exact same level of mid-range play as you, but maybe it's a little lower, maybe it's a little higher. But at the end of the day, their tools mid-range are just better than yours, right?
Character,
So you
yeah,
you
yeah.
have to drastically outplay them in that area to beat them, right?
Yeah.
Or you have to try to attack at a different range and try to operate at a different range, and then maybe you can overcome the character. Because obviously Mega Man's mid-range is fantastic, but he lacks in some other departments, right? So I
It's
think
really cool because I'm interrupting you real quick
yeah, that's
because
fine. That's fine.
before I forget, because what Tony talked about a few episodes ago was to beat MkLeo's Byleth, you want to focus on changing the ranges so that he doesn't get to play in that range that Byleth wants to play at. And I feel like that is exactly kind of what we're getting at back here is like Leo is so good at the mid range. The way to beat him in the mid range is by pretending that you're going to play the mid range and then actually not playing it.
Mm-hmm.
And how well you do is all about how you feint not even the mid range itself, but the movement surrounding the mid range and changing situations.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think like it's super awesome that you're telling this story because it reflects exactly back on what we talked about during the Byleth episode all the way back then. So that's cool.
Time is
I
a
like that.
circle.
Time
Yeah,
is a circle.
absolutely.
For sure.
It is a circle.
Deep, deep.
Yeah, and then look
No,
at Corrin.
Byleth Nair too.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
But just look at Corrin, right? I feel like Leo, he understands to a T how to play characters that. Now, when we look at Corrin, we said a bunch of great stuff. We said a bunch of not so great stuff. I think we can generally sum it up to, great range, all this other stuff, but the mobility is where Corrin lacks. When Corrin usually loses a matchup, it's because of her lack of mobility for the most part, right? Well, Corrin versus Falco. Who else has lack of mobility? Who else's mobility is front loaded into a move? Now, Falco has more mobility than Corrin, but it's committal mobility. It's not raw stats, right? Fox is mobility. Like that is just raw stats. It's not front loaded into a move. And then he also has moves that shoot him forward, like illusion and stuff like that. So now we're like Sheik, Fox, Diddy, this is raw mobility, right? So I think the way Leo understands and knows the game, he knows when and where to pick Corrin. I don't think he's by any means going to go in a Genesis solo Corrin, right? And
Yeah.
just
Hope
because
not.
No,
yeah, I
dude,
hope
no
not.
way. There's no way. There's
Right,
no
and
world.
so it's like everyone's hyping up Corrin right now, and I think it's fair. But remember, it was an invitational, and he did not even play Corrin the entire time. It was the last 3 matchups, and it's not like it was just like, oh well, I'm gonna win the tournament with Corrin, so everyone thinks Corrin is better. Leo is a competitor at heart, so he just went with the character that he thought was better for said person or matchup, right? And when you get to Leo's level, there comes a point where like every other player, when you're looking through your scope of what your character pool should be, you're trying to tackle a very general landscape of characters, right? Because sorry to hear this, I'm the one breaking it to you, but you're not the best player in the world. So, because you're not the best player in the world, yeah, I know, Sag, you have to try and cover a very general scope because you're essentially Leo can beat 99% of players on this planet, and you could pick his character. That's how much better than he is, or that's how much better he is than the player base, right?
Yeah.
He is so good that he really only has to pick and choose his characters that he goes against a very specific pool of players. So, because of this, I think the Corrin against Spargo, and he just, like, to me, Corrin is just another pick that, because it's very obvious that Leo is down to play a character with range and no mobility, right? That is Byleth. That is Corrin. That is Pyra, but not Mithra, right? So it's like, I think Aegis is like a kind of a weird thing for him because he's like mixing Joker and Byleth into one character, and I don't know if he like wants to do that or not. And even then, like comparing Mithra and Joker, like they're not even really the same. They're pretty different in a sense. So I think he just doesn't really like playing Mithra. I think he probably really enjoys playing Pyra.
Oh, he loves playing Pyro.
He loves Pyro.
Sure.
Right, he's definitely a Pyro kind of
came out, he just played like Pyro only.
Yeah, I'm the Pyro too, man. I'm
his
about
Pyro
that
is sick
yeah.
though. His
Right.
really
So
good.
Yeah, for sure.
I think he understands his own player strengths, and he understands how much better than he is than most of the player base. So it's like, well, this game's pretty balanced. He's looking at the overall scope of the game. This game's pretty balanced. I can play these characters that have some pretty rough matchups, but I am so good at using range and playing at the mid-range with no mobility. He's very good at playing at that range, specifically with no mobility. So he's gravitating towards these characters that have these traits, and he just has to overcome these specific challenges, right? Because essentially, Corrin and Byleth share generally the same weaknesses, right? It's a little shuffled around, like Byleth's recovery is a little better, blah, blah, but it's like general lack of mobility, right? So he has to overcome these challenges, but it's like different versions of his type of character is how I'm viewing it. I feel like that's the kind of strategy Leo is going with, and it's working so far. But the big question mark is what Ramses brought up. How long will this work? How balanced is this game? And is this game balanced to the point where Leo can get away with doing that and just get away with playing towards his strength? Or, 1 to 2 years down the line, is this going to revert back to some of the older iterations of Smash where it's just like, well, these are the meta characters. You have, like, the player base has gotten so good at the game that you have to play these pool of characters or you're memeing, right?
Yep.
So that I think that's the biggest question mark. And I guess in a sense, does Leo carry these characters? I mean, on paper, I guess you can say yes, right? On paper, but I think I think what really separates our train of thought to the viewer is when we look at the game, we're trying to dissect the character strength as where everyone else is just like, oh, well, Leo has the only result, so he carries the character. Well, it's like, but like we don't care about that. We care about what are the strengths of said character, right? Yeah. We know there's always going for the most part, that applies to almost every character. Tweak carries Diddy Kong, blah blah blah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's
any top player is going to carry the.
There's not even a lot of duplicates of characters in Ultimate, right? Yeah. So, I mean, I think that just applies for everything. But yeah, that was pretty much like my closing thoughts on Leo's lineup, the Corrin now. I guess what to think of in the future. I don't know if you guys had anything to add on to that.
I specifically would just like to say that what I do expect to see, or something else I expect to see from Leo, is a lot of his corner pressure and ledge trapping. You would see him mistime buttons on specifically the Pyra buttons. So it's worth noting that pretty much across the board, it's about that Corrin's moves are Pyra's moves. However, Pyra's hitbox will come out about 4 frames after Corrin's on the exact same animation. And so we would see Leo whiff a lot of these by mistiming things, like on ledge get up. He would forward tilt in particular.
Forward tilt,
comes to mind. Yeah, like that's a very popular option that I think Spargo was obviously is, I should say, a big fan of. I specifically recall him going for like down smash setups, Mithra style, and it's kind of an in between timing between Mithras and Pyras The well, actually, I take that back. It's one of Pyro's few objectively better moves than Corrin's. The timings are usually just slightly off. I think that Leo is going to specifically adjust those timings by Genesis. He is a diligent young man, and he tends to observe his footage similarly to how Spargo also learns quite a bit from his replays. And so I think we're going to see him fix these small timing errors. I can actually see, like Ramsey said, if Leo goes pure Corrin, I think he can still make top 8. I think that making top 8 for Leo is a low bar.
Yeah.
So that doesn't count.
That's brushing your teeth. That's brushing your teeth.
Character that doesn't count. Top 8 for Leo doesn't count.
It's kind of a mixed feelings on that. Like I don't think Corrin is holding Leo back. I also don't think that Corrin is going to be a fixture of finals unless it is Leo exactly controlling the character, or maybe Spargo picking up Corrin after he loses to the character. But I expect people are going to eventually pivot around, and this is more of a general metagame expectation, but I expect people to start pivoting back toward using shields as more and more players use this kind of fake pressure, because I think Leo was really just counting on people not realizing how unsafe some of Corrin's pressure was, and then people just wouldn't play around it. Yeah. So I think that once people understand this is actually something you should study, and instead of people just saying, why are you using your bottom tier against me? I don't have to, don't disrespect me. Like, that'll make you bring out the Byleth, and then they get 3-0'd. So I think that's where we're at right now in the meta. So I think Leo is going to get better this month. And then after that, Corrin is going to fall off. But like Charles said, it is very specifically a counter pick. So I don't think we're going to see it in the matchups where it would struggle. So there is no open field Corrin that we're going to see anytime soon. But I felt that was what was going to happen with Byleth, where we would see Joker and Aegis, and then Byleth would just be a niche character, and then he ended up just going straight Byleth and winning a major.
That's kind of where we're going towards with Leo, right? He's looking for alternatives to Byleth. So in a sense, you're right. It's just that Leo's trying to get ahead of the game and not get ahead of it before he becomes obsolete.
Right. So, I mean, and that being said, though, too, right? Like we've talked about it before, how Byleth has a more kind of I just feel like it's a more airtight toolkit. You know what I mean? Like obviously Nair like being such a great move that really ties in the rest of the avenues together. Having an actual throw game that's coming from Byleth as well versus Corrin. We talked about it already. Ramses, you were talking about it in terms of a lot of times with Corrin, it's like, oh, I can just take the throw. You know what I mean? Yep. And like I'm not really getting pressured by you anyways. I'm not getting these mix-ups on my shield. You know, you're not like, yes, I have my forward smashes, which is going to be my primary shield breaker move. But then again, that's really like we talked about the new, the counter strategies there where also for Byleth, it's like you have to set, like if I hit you with this on your shield, then that shield's popped. Like there's no, maybe I can do this. No, like there's no time for you to think about that. You messed up, you shielded, I read it, you're dead, So I think we're just not going to see it from that character in the same way. But yeah, I mean, Leo obviously super talented. He's super studious. He's going to get what needs to be done. But yeah, I do think this character is just I don't think this character is going to be the same way as Byleth. I was definitely I was probably one of like some of the few people who were like, I think Byleth is like pretty solid character. If there's some few changes happening, then the character will be good. The changes happen. I was like, this character could probably do something. He ended up picking up the character and then doing some stuff there. But I don't see it for Corrin. I don't see that for the character. And if it happens, hey, sue me. We surprise you. I got.
Yeah.
But I don't see it coming out of Corrin here. I wanted to make one last note before I pass off to you, Ramses. But I really love you, Tony, talking about how the punishment we saw out of Gluto on these reverse up airs, right? That's something that's really, really important. A lot of people don't take nearly enough. I love ultimate frame data. Like obviously it's great to know that you have, this is on a -5, whatever. But a lot of people tend to just assume -5 is everywhere, right? And it's just like, oh, automatically this is -5. Oh, so this save, I can't do anything. And you need to really look at like, like where they are swinging, like in terms of the time, like if they're doing it at the right height in the first place, but also too, when it's going to be hitting your shield, right? Certain moves, like it's unless you're running into their certain time. If you're already there and you put up your shield early on, it's not going to ever get to the point where it's going to be that safe as you're talking about, right? Unless they're drifting in and getting the fading hit or something to that notion, and that's like really really important, right? To recognize with some of these sword characters where that their moves can be very safe, but there are certain additional facets to that make it so. It's not automatically that way. And I think when people recognize those things, they've been able to, punish these things from Corrin accordingly. And I think as great as Leo is at getting some of these whiff punishes with his fairs and stuff too, and utilizing that. I mean, shout out to that fair though. That fair is like, has range of like Lucina, like I think slightly more than Lucina's, right? So it's like you're getting that and you're getting combos from that. Like obviously that's going to be a very strong tool, but I think it's going to be only so much until people recognize how they can move around that, and also just understanding that paying attention to where moves are hitting on your shield and recognizing like, hey, actually this one is not safe, bro. Like, I'm sorry, I can't, like, you guys start taxing that, right? That's not safe.
Yep.
So I think that's going to be happening with this character. I don't think this character has as much kind of strategy around that as, say, a character like Byleth. So, but he has tools. I don't think it's going to be long standing. I can see him getting some wins because it's Leo. The character's good enough. I think characters in terms of this game, because of how balance is, there's certain situations where if people don't know how to put Corrin in those bad positions and he refuses to be there, then it doesn't matter if these situations are bad, right? If he doesn't let you play in those situations. So that's another aspect too when it comes to fighting games in general, right? So it's gonna be interesting. Genesis is gonna be very, very interesting. That's for sure.
Yeah. So I guess I'll close off with the Corrin hate.
Corrin haters.
Hell
I
yeah.
think again, like Corrin's main weakness is just her lack of burst range and speed. I think for characters that are slow, they're really good at controlling the space around them. Think about like Byleth, right? Especially the dash attack, I think is just a huge one, but also something like down tilt. Think about something like Pyra 4 tilt, just like basically an insane move. Corrin doesn't really have the burst range, and she also doesn't really have the ground game. Now, Pin it's serviceable now, but it's still like it's not good enough to save her ground game. Again, her dash attack is ass, her down tilt is -17, her forward tilt is safer than her down tilt. Which you don't see too often. Her jab isn't great, right? Her out of shield is okay, but frame 9 out of shield is also not good enough to deal with something like Sheik. So overall, like you what you see, and you also see this from Leo, is Corrin spends a lot of time in the air. And as we have seen from, basically time and time again, the more the meta progresses, the less advantageous it is to be in the air unless you're really good in the air. Like, say, Roy short hop neutral air, basically a ground move, right? You start up the jump, you do it in there, you get 2 hits, you end up back on the ground.
Kick,
right, it's a hop, exactly.
It's a hop kick, bro.
It's a triangle dash.
Yeah.
So like something like Corrin is also not like the fastest faller either, so she's not gonna get down as easily. So like being in the air is gonna be less and less advantageous, even though she has 2 of the best aerials in the game, because we talked about up air being probably the best or possibly the best up air in the game. I think Game Watch up air is up there.
Oh yeah.
I think her second best aerial is not forward air. I think it's back air. I think her back air is insane. It is bigger than Cloud's back air. It is bigger than Shulk's back air. It is
Spacing simulator. It has utility past that.
Right. Yep. In auto spaces, and something that it does really well that goes kind of underutilized even by like top level Corrins is that if you do like a short hop back air, the back air instantly cancels your upwards momentum. You can fast fall back down, which doesn't hit shields. But if you think someone's gonna jump, you can do short hop back air fast fall. It's nearly unreactable. You're gonna kill people with it. And it just really controls the airspace very well. Now, the issue with that is, like, Corrin doesn't really do well when we're both on the ground. So, again, I feel like that's just a huge flaw of the character. That's also why, like, a lot of Corrin players gravitated towards Palutena, because Palutena has a broken up air, broken back air, bad ground game, but Palutena's fast, right? It's kind of like, a lot of similarities. Anyway, exactly, good burst off. She has a lot of things to compensate. So I'm open to being wrong about Corrin because I've seen Leo prove me wrong before. I thought Byleth was bad. I thought Byleth was bad after the buffs. Leo showed me why that wasn't true, and I added some new information to my repertoire. Fair enough. For Corrin, again, just like Bam said, I just cannot see it. I feel like the character's too inherently flawed. But I think if she is in a matchup where she gets to be defensive, she's really good. And I think that is a lot of match. I think even something like Cloud, like you can play very defensive against Cloud. It can be very hard for him to set up his pressure if you know how to dismantle it. It's just that like at the point where the opponent starts to understand how to avoid the high reward things, it gets it gets a little bit rough. The thing that I see in like Leo's games at the Mexican Invitational, Delfino Raza, I think, is that like the opponent doesn't understand the risk reward of the situation, so they cannot make an accurate decision. Because if you don't know what the consequences are, then your decision makes like you cannot make it. It's like saying, "Yo, do I want a bigger house or a better car?" Well, do you know exactly what's going to happen? What's going to be the result of these actions? Well, I mean, you're going to get a bigger house or a better car, but in the context of your life, which is better? And only when you understand like that entire context of your life can you make a decision like that. But someone else cannot like walk in and be like, "Oh, you should get the better car because I like the better car." And that's kind of like the position that people are in. Is like they don't understand Corrin, so they don't understand the entire context of the decisions that they're making against Corrin. So then they make a mistake and they get forward aired, platform reset, back aired, and
Right.
they take like 30, something like 30, and they're off stage, or they might die at like 70 because Becker is insane now. And that's just kind of the same thing about the Dragon Fang shot, right? Like people get caught off guard because it lingers for longer than they think. And it all comes down to the same thing. People don't understand the exact choices, like the exact consequences of the choices they're making. And
Yep.
that's why, especially a character like Corrin does so well, especially by a pilot like Leo, because Leo's not just applying his Corrin knowledge. If you look at the way he plays Corrin, it's kind of like Lucina, but slower with like, some extra shit. But like if you compare his Corrin gameplay now to his Lucina gameplay when he made Lucina, it is very, very similar. It's very, very similar. When I watched him play, I was just like, this is Lucina. He's just playing Lucina. So in that sense, like, obviously a lot of experience, advantage for Leo. And final thing, what Charles said is true. I just want to see what's going to outpace. Is it going to be the meta catching up to Corrin, or is it going to be Corrin keeping up with the meta? That's the most important question.
Yep. So
She's getting lapped, bro. She's getting lapped.
you think? Yeah. See.
She's getting lapped. I'm gonna say it, man. She's getting lapped.
There's a lot of opinions, man. A lot of opinions.
True.
I honestly, it's so hard to say because Leo is just so damn good at like compensating for that from what I've seen so far, right? And I'll be honest as well. I didn't believe in Byleth, and all that other stuff, pre-patch or post-patch. I was just like, oh, I don't think these buffs are enough. And
Yep.
it was a combination of maybe new Corrin stuff gets found out. I think what we know of Corrin now is what we have. Because even with Byleth before, I didn't know about like down throw bear killing at 50.
Oh, yeah.
Like that's a crazy confirm off
That's
grab.
crazy.
You have
Yeah,
to
yeah.
respect Byleth's dash grabbing into you in the corner, which changes their whole corner dynamic, right? So I do think I don't think we're gonna find out any like new Corrin tech or something, but I do think that I know Pink mentioned this on the podcast is the Leo Corrin is not particularly optimized in terms of damage output or kill confirms, right?
Yeah.
There's even an example he got a falling fair and they didn't DI out and that was an easy fang shot, went for a back air, almost killed but didn't, stuff like that, right? So I think Leo's Corrin will get more optimized, and even as Tony brought up earlier, will get better with its timings and stuff. Leo is a phenomenal player when it comes to execution and timings, which is why he was able to take Joker as far as he did, because you have to play very consistently with that character and hit every single, confirm every single little whiff punish and stuff like that. I think it's also interesting how Leo ledge traps with the character as well, but we will see how far Leo is going to be able to take Corrin if he'll stick with this character roster. I think right now is a very exciting time for Ultimate. Before the big question was who's going to beat Leo at this tournament. I think now it's a really the overall spectrum of the question is who's going to win this tournament. I think there's a lot of players that can win the entire thing over Leo and not even have Leo in grand finals. I think right now is the most competitive timeline we have for Ultimate. And all these fucking crazy ass characters are coming out of nowhere, and it's just like, holy shit, do you have to play a top tier? Do you have to play a high tier? Like, it's just like, how low can you go? And I mean, and it's also like, how much do we even actually know about the game, right? So I think it's really exciting because everyone has the opinions out there, and I think you can argue all as you want. The main thing is just don't be toxic and learn as much as you can, right? It's okay to be wrong, and I've been wrong many, many times about this game, and I've been proven wrong many, many times about this game, and I'm gonna be proven wrong many, many times about this game. So is all of us in this podcast, right? But I think learning is the funnest part of the journey, especially if you just love the game. But that's gonna be it for us for this episode. We'll see you guys in the next one.